welcome back to all Pirates fans. We're here for podcast number 18. It's been quite a little while, but things have been kind of crazy. The end of school, but this will probably be the last podcast that we have to do on a webcam like this. Hopefully, after this, me and Gabriel will be able to get together again. There's some other things that we want to do digitally to go ahead and make the podcast even, take it up another step. Because if you've been with us from the beginning, before it was just a slide, a picture, and our audio. And then we upgraded it by getting a couple of microphones. When we started going on the computer and doing it live almost. And now we got a new webcam. And now we're looking at possibly throwing some new things in to make it look even more eye appealing to you. But I wanted to go and throw it over to Rockport real quick for probably the last time that we have to do it this way without actually being together live. My man Gabriel, what's going on down in Rockport, Gabriel?
It's quiet down here, man. Right after the podcast, I'll be getting to bed. But, we are going to be able to meet together, right, and go to different places. But I like this webcam. So from time to time, when we're at the house, I like to be able to put on that webcam and do some podcasts.
I'm going to go ahead and talk about a couple things tonight that we hope that you enjoy. We've had ups and downs with the last couple podcasts since we can't always get them on as soon as we want. What is our main podcast deal? Is to deal in what? Facts.
We give opinions, but right is right and wrong is wrong. And we said that from before we even started with podcast one.
And, the only thing I'd like to add to that is that, everybody has an opinion. We're not these two like mannequins that don't have feelings or ideas. But the one thing is, we want to try to be open-minded, and if you don't agree with something that we had to say, there's plenty of people that'll send us messages on Facebook, or they'll go on our YouTube page and leave messages, and we love it, whether it's that they don't agree with us or they do agree with us. And when we present something on this podcast, they might say, no, that didn't happen, or this didn't happen, and we're like, are you sure about that? Because what we try to do is before we jump into something, we try to know the facts. It's not an opinion. We're not going to sit there and say, blue is better than red or something like that. This is a fact. Now, if you don't like it, it is what it is. Vinny, what did you say, the old saying about facts?
Facts don't care about feelings.
Facts don't care about feelings. Boom. So the thing is, if it's a fact, we're sorry if we're upsetting you. But one thing that Gabriel and I really wanted to talk about in this podcast is we came up with two different terms of how we look at Americans. I'll just put it out there. These are not opinions. They're kind of, if you really think about it, people are separating into their own tribes. And if you don't believe in this politician, you're a bad person. Or if you believe in this type of religion, you're good. But we're seeing that there's part of America that we're going to call Agape. These people are open hearts, open arms, open minds. They're not going to judge so quickly. They're going to be there and care about others. And I know a lot of Americans feel that they're that way, but sometimes when you look at their real motivations in life, we call those other people the listless. And the listless is the antithesis of agape people. To us, a listless person is somebody who is selfish. I come first. What I want is my way. These are the people that you see at Target on Black Friday pushing little kids out of the way to get what I want. I'm going to take that TV and stuff. We're not saying that to want something is bad, but to be that selfish that nobody else comes into your realm of thought of what is good or bad. It's just what I want. Another thing about these people, I'm always right. I have no doubt about it. I am always right. You're always wrong. 2 + 2 is 5, and you can't tell me that it's any different. That type of person, they're never going to have an open mind, like we talked about with Agape, open mind. And the last one, they're extremely closed-minded. They're not willing to change in any fashion. They're set in their ways. And this could be somebody who's 15, 35, 85. They're not going to change. And you strive sometimes to try to explain things to them in a certain way to not bring them to your side just so that they can understand a different point of view. It's not going to work. It's almost like it's robotic. It's so intrinsic in them not to care what other people believe in or what they think. They're all wrong. And so we kind of said that, we're trying to come up with names. We didn't want to go with different things. Everybody says liberal, conservative, Democrat, Republican. We try to turn things into black and white issues and stuff. We're trying to deal with what's right. And so we decided Agape and Listless. What do you think, Gabriel, about the two different types, Agape versus Listless people, how you see America?
Well, I see it the same way that you're explaining it. I mean, we're divided, and we are who we are. I'm Agape. I always have been, I put other people before me. I always have. I've never been selfish. I wasn't raised that way. And, so I try to be open-minded, Eric. I think you and I talk about this all the time. And it's sad that we have those other types of people because it divides us. We're never going to come together. And so when you made the comparison, I thought it was a great comparison because we do have a list of people that are on this side, and then we do have these other types of people. And when they clash, it's bad. And so these type of people are going to look at us and find fault in what they're doing. And then these people are going to look and find fault. So the reason we brought this up is we've got to know who we are and make the changes. We've got to be willing to make the changes on both. We just got to be able to be helping each other out. What you and I talked about earlier before we got on this podcast is we're all brothers, right? Sisters. We got to love each other. We got to show that love, whether we know somebody or not.
I think I'd like to, add one little asterisk to this because some people are probably looking at the podcast right now you're trying to tell me that people are perfect and they're just Agape all the time. No. We all can sway back and forth. It's just where you want to stay the majority of the time. Nobody on earth is perfect. So we want to go ahead and get into a little bit about things that we saw happening recently in the news. The last time that we talked about the Ahmad Barberie death on film, and we know that the father and the son have been arrested, and the third person has now been arrested, the one that was filming it. He's been arrested for first-degree murder. The FBI is investigating and stuff. Just want to give you a little update on that. That's as far as we know on that. But what also came out in the last 2 weeks is that the sister, the daughter of the McMichael, who used to be the cop and stuff, she came out after the shooting and was taking pictures from her front porch and I guess front lawn of the scene where the body was, the paramedics and stuff. And then she posted it. It's not like she took it for herself, which would be gruesome enough, but she took it and then she posted to I think Instagram or something. He basically exclaimed to everybody, "Look, I watch these shows all the time about murders and stuff, and it just happened in my front driveway, basically. So I'm out here taking pictures of it."
Just doesn't make sense to do that at all. This is real life. This is a life that was taken. I don't understand that type of thinking, and I don't think I ever will. I just don't understand why you would post something like that. But whatever the reason is, there are going to be another family that's suffering. And now yours is suffering as well. Your brother, your father are locked up in a jail cell. Possibly could be going to prison for many years.
That's where we're at in that. And because of that, the case, we did have somebody reach out to us almost immediately and basically said, why are you talking about that? The two old pirates, why aren't you talking about other crimes that happened? Well, the thing is, the reason why that one made national news is because I had heard about it in February when it happened. I'd heard bits and pieces in March. But by the time that the video was released, when you see something visually, it affects you in a different way than reading a story. It just does. That's why movies are so popular. It's not just because people are lazy and don't want to read, but also you get the visual impact of something. And when you see something like that happen, it's going to be a more well-known story than any other story that's happening. That's somebody was shot in a bar in Phoenix. Okay. You see that shooting on closed circuit TV or something, you're going to see a person's life being taken. It hits you. So when we saw that happen, so we were told, why don't you report on this? And they linked to another, and I said, hey, we'll get on that. And I'm promising that person right now that we're doing that. So Steve, if you're watching, this is for you. I believe wasn't it in Houston, Texas, Gabriel?
Yes, it was in Houston.
Okay, in Houston, Texas, an 80-year-old woman was coming out of, I believe, like a Walgreens or it was a pharmacy. And as she came out to get to her car, a man who was just kind of lingering attacked her with a 6-inch blade trying to steal whatever he could and steal the car. He proceeded to stab her in the chest, and as she laid there mortally wounded, he tried to get into the car. By this time, people had already called the cops. They were close enough. He tried to start the car. Evidently, he didn't know how to start the car. Cops got there in the parking lot. They came towards him. He lunged at them with the blade. They shot at him twice and hit him at least once, and he died at the scene. Then we find out that the man had been arrested and convicted. Listen to the number: 67 times. He had been arrested and convicted for a multitude of crimes. He also they'd done psychological evaluations on him, and he was mentally ill. So he was supposed to be in a halfway house until he could move out on his own. He was supposed to check in at certain times. He was a mentally ill man who also had 67 convictions, and he's loitering outside of a grocery store. That tells you something about our justice system. They failed on this. We're not talking about 1, 2, 3, 67. Now, these are 67 times he was caught and convicted. God knows how many crimes he's actually committed. But 67 crimes, and he's still out walking amongst us. Plus, he was mentally ill. He was a violent, mentally ill person. And so when our friend from Rockport, Steve, saw that, he jumped on us and said, better report on this. And I told him, and I told you, Steve, if you're watching this, I will go ahead and report on this. And we did. We're doing it now. So unfortunately, this 80-year-old grandmother and mother, she was stabbed to death by a random man who was mentally ill, who was going to rob her and take her car. And
no, he was down, I don't know the name of the store, but he was down the street or across the street at some I read some report that he was asking for money. So he had to come across, if what I read is true, asking for money. I don't think people would. So he didn't he went out and attacked that any of those people, if what I read was true. Then he goes down either across the street or down the way. There's a Walgreens, I believe, and he comes in there. I don't know how he came in contact. I don't know if she was coming out and he just kind of went in. I think he actually followed her to the car. It seems that he was going to rob her. He was looking for money. But I don't know if she put up a fight and that's why he stabbed. I don't know what his intentions were. I would probably think that she probably put up a fight because, like I said, he was asking down a ways, asking other people, and he didn't attack them. Murder's bad. I mean, the history tells you that he shouldn't have been out in public. Shouldn't have been out. Got to come out. Needs to be monitored consistently, his whereabouts. However, you got to do that. You can't just let him walk away. No, I don't believe from what I've read that she was targeted. I think wrong place, wrong time, and he just kind of went after her. Either way, the death should never have occurred. And we really need to pay attention on when you're coming out of that system. The justice system has to do a better job of being able to protect the citizens.
I'll let Gabriel break into this one, then I'll break into the last one, and then we'll probably say goodnight for you due to the fact that Gabriel's got to get to work tomorrow. But I wanted you to explain a little bit about the Brianna Taylor shooting.
Oh, yes. I was reading up. So Brianna Taylor, I believe it happened in Kentucky, Louisville, Kentucky. I don't know. So we have a lady, I think she was a nurse or she worked in the ER department, I believe. She was a nurse. And she was at a house at her apartment with her boyfriend. I think the boyfriend, from what I read, had a license to carry a firearm. And I think late into the night, they were asleep. I want to say maybe about 1 o'clock in the morning. Police officers approached the house. They were in street clothes. This is what's being reported that I read. And so they were not in police uniform. And then there's kind of like some discretion. It's kind of like a little mixed because I think that they got a warrant. They were looking for someone. And so I guess they say police, whatever they say. And then they came in, resulting in they banged down. They went through the front door, I believe. And so the boyfriend got up and heard the noise, thought that they were probably breaking in, didn't really know, didn't hear anything. So he gets his gun and shoots, thinking that they're intruders. I think he ended up shooting a cop. It wasn't life-threatening, I don't believe, but one of the police officers did get shot. And so They opened up 20 rounds. They shot 20 rounds, I believe, 20 shots. 8 hit Brianna Taylor, killing her. She was in bed, I believe. They arrested the boyfriend, and it turns out, from what I've read, that they were looking that neither Brianna or the boyfriend were the people, the individuals that the police were looking for. It was another guy that I think maybe was associated with Brianna maybe 2-3 years before, but he was receiving some mail or had been receiving mails, or they had received some tips that he had been at the house before in the past. And I think they said he was receiving mail. So they went in, and then this senseless death again, this is what happened. So the guy that they were looking for wasn't even in the house, according to what's being reported. And so again, a young a girl ends up losing her life.
One thing that you didn't include was the no knock. Gabriel had told me about this, and now I'm reading up on it. It's kind of confusing. In Louisville, Kentucky, they have 2 different laws. They have a law that you can protect yourself in your home if you feel anyone, even a police officer, is trying to break in, even though you might not know it's a cop. The problem is, if the cop legally says who he is or she is, then you have to rear back a little bit on what you can do to protect yourself. So that kind of leaves it open for the homeowner that if I'm breaking in, I could just say, police, police, and I'm not a cop. And you're going to put your gun down for a second. That might give me the element of surprise, and I could take you guys hostage or worse. On the other side, they have what's known as a no-knock warrant, which means that you don't have to knock. In Louisville, Kentucky, you can just bust open the door and not let anybody in, because they think that if there's something illegal going on inside, you want to catch them in the act, and therefore they can't flush narcotics or anything down a toilet, throw a gun out a window or something like that. So because of that, even the mayor of Louisville said it's a no-win situation for the police or for private citizens. You have the right to defend yourself without a question. If somebody tries to break into your house, to shoot to kill. And if you're a police officer, if you get a no-knock warrant, you can just break into the house without ever saying you're a cop. You're leading to situations like this young woman who was an ER tech. She had been an EMT, and now she was working at the ER at a hospital, and she was shot 8 times in her own house and killed. 8 bullets hit her because her boyfriend heard somebody breaking in. No knock. They bust in. He gets off a couple of shots. One officer's hit, non-life threatening, and they just, boom, they just pop. They all 4 of them open up.
The police officers were also in street clothes. So they're not in a police uniform that could possibly, if you look at it and you see it, you can probably hold up, but they were in street clothes. You're half asleep. Well, you're asleep. So you get up. When you get up, that's something you think somebody's breaking in. You're really not. I would think that I wouldn't really be in my full thought process. The first thing you're going to think somebody's breaking in. I heard a noise. You're getting the gun, which he had a license to carry. I just don't understand the 20 shots, Eric. Killing the girl. I mean, I just don't understand that. And I think as police officers, and this is the problem, and you just kind of broke down what happened. There's other ways. I mean, breaking in or hitting somebody at a house at 1:00 in the morning, there's a good chance that it's going to end up bad. It's important to be able to tell our listeners, right, that the 2 people that were in that house at that time were not the people that the police officers were looking for. And the end result is a young lady getting shot. It's bad for both because, like you're saying, the police are going in there. They're getting shot at. They're trained, I'm going to shoot you back. But 20 shots, and then the girl, an innocent lady, a young lady, ends up losing her life. You and I always talk about lives matter. We've got to take a look at these type of cases and find out and digest it, Eric, to find out exactly what is going wrong. And we've got to be able to change it. That's very, very dangerous, whether you're the police officer or the people that are in the house. Look at what happened. Look what's coming out. And in result, you have a guy that could possibly go to prison for attempted murder when he was just trying to protect himself because he didn't know what was going on. But it was led by police officers coming into the house. I mean, if I'm asleep and I hear a door and my front door goes down and it's dark and I got the gun next to me, man, I'm probably going to do the same thing. I thought about this. What would you do?
Say the last thing that we were going to talk about is George Floyd, and this happened sadly last night on Memorial Day night. Memorial Day night is the last of a 3-day weekend. A lot of people are traveling home after going to beaches and after America's kind of opened up a little bit. And sadly, yesterday in Minneapolis, Minnesota, the video came out once again, and that's why it's making so much news. If you don't like seeing this stuff, turn off the news, because these horrible things that happen are going to continue to be shown because of things like this. It's called a cell phone. We've all got them, and they've got really good cameras on them. And so they're recording these things that happen, whether it's between two people, like the Carmichaels and Ahmad Barberie, just citizens, or police officers and citizens. This man evidently was going to be arrested for a forgery charge. I don't know if it was on a check or he forged something. Maybe he had a cash or pawn place, but he was arrested. And as he was on the ground next to the patrol car, handcuffed, you slowly see him die. Now, the report is he died at the hospital a short time later. If you watch the film, which I did, and when Gabriel saw it, he was just as pissed off as I was. They're marching in Minneapolis tonight. They're probably going to be marching in different parts of the country over the next couple days, because what you saw was 4 police officers and one guy handcuffed who, over a 5-minute period, begged and pleaded that he could not breathe. He was calling for his mother. And you just saw him more and more slowly just start to go out. You saw people around screaming, "Let him go. He's already handcuffed. You don't have to do this." The police officer had one knee on his neck, and he had the other knee on his back, and he was basically perched on top of him. At one point, he was so calm and collected, he put his hands in his pockets as people were yelling, "He can't breathe. Just get off him." The man was not going to run. He was not going to be able to get up. He was already in pain, and he was saying, "I can't breathe. I can't breathe," over and over and over. And after 5.5 minutes, they finally realized he's not talking anymore and he's not moving. By that time, they bring a stretcher, and you see him, his lifeless body lifted up on there, and they rush him away, and they say, "Oh, he died a short time later." That man died on the street. And a lot of our friends have shared it with us on Facebook and different things, saying, "Can you believe this is happening in America?" He was not attacking anybody. He was going to be arrested for forgery. Criminal act. Arrest him. He died. And it's not like it was a case where the cop couldn't get up and move because he was all alone and he was afraid of his safety. There was 4 police officers, and they were all fired today. May 26th. They were all fired today. So to sit there and think that that this was not a crime, the people of Minneapolis have rallied around this man who unfortunately lost his life. The mayor has rallied around. The police chief fired all the police officers that were there. And it was just a sad state of affairs. But for those of you that don't want to hear about things like this, you have to understand video is very revealing. It does more than just black and white letters on a news feed or something. When you see a man calling for life, basically, and it's snuffed out like that, it's going to affect you. It's going to piss you off. And I think Gabriel has something he wants to add to that.
Well, I think it was, I think he gave a fake $20 bill, I think is what I read. But Eric, what was really striking, I saw the video 3 times, and 3 times I was disgusted, man. It really got my blood boiling, man. I couldn't believe what I was watching. But the police officers were being videotaped. So while they didn't help this man, they were being videotaped. They know that they were being videotaped, and still, you would think, okay, I'm getting videotaped, I'm going to get up. It's the right thing to do. I'm getting myself in trouble. They didn't even care. I watched the guy on top that had his knee on his neck. He never once moved. And this was all because I think he didn't want to get in the car. I don't know if he resisted or I don't know what happened, but I know he didn't want to get in the car. And so he resisted getting in the car. It wasn't the right thing to do. Should have gotten in the car. That doesn't give you the right. Once he's handcuffed, and I want people to understand this. He's handcuffed. Okay, he can't use his hands to move or anything. The only thing he can move is his head. All right? and you can't breathe. You're basically losing air, and you're begging for them. And you could have loosened up a little bit if you didn't want to get off of them, which you should have got off of them anyway. But you just sit there and you watch this man lose his life, and the other police officers don't intervene. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, and it pisses me the hell off. The 3 times that I saw it, these guys, these 4 police officers were rightfully uh, fired. It didn't take very long. I mean, I think this is the first time. Usually, you'll see, well, we got to investigate. Man, that mayor came out and said, you know what, this is wrong. Once they saw the video, and they were fired the very next day. But Eric, in America, what we saw, what we've been talking about, but the murder on Monday, when this young man begging for his life, the video shows that he needs get off. I can't breathe, and he's calling multiple times to get off of him. That he can't breathe, and you don't.
But Gabriel, one thing I do want to say is, if you've not watched the video, I don't recommend that you watch it, and if you don't want to see a death. But did you ever hear him in any way verbally attack the cops, like get off me, you mother? I never heard anything. It was more of a
Eric,
a cry for help, like, please stop doing this. I never saw him angry. There was so much fear in his voice when he called for his mama. When a 42-year-old man's all mama, mama like that, his voice cracking, it killed me inside, because I'm like, how can this man who's sitting on it not see what's going on? You're killing him. You're literally killing him.
You know, Eric, the thing that was bad is when the people were trying to get close to give some kind of assistance. They just wanted him to be able to breathe. They were threatened with mace. Don't come near us. And watching the guy that was on top of him not get up, and then just as this man that's on the ground is, I can't breathe. And all I could hear that cop saying, "Are you going to get in the car? Are you going to get in the car next time?" And I'm listening to them closely, and I see the other police officers standing around. I think to myself, what is going on in America? When I was a kid, the police were there to serve and protect. There were people that I knew. If I saw a police officer when I was a kid, I could go to that police officer, because that police officer was going to protect me. And the bad thing is, there are a lot of police officers in this country that do serve and protect. They come out there and they put their lives on the line every day to do right. But because of these bad police officers that do stuff like this, those good cops that come out here and put their lives on the line are now also going to fall in that line of, is this a good cop or a bad cop? And
to interject real quick, you remember growing up at the Mexican Park, and we'd be out there playing basketball. Somebody out of the park would usually yell something. They'd yell pig, the F you police or something like that. They would scream something but the reason why is, if I was to sit there and tell that guy, why do you hate the cops so much? He would say, because they arrest people, man. Nowadays, all these years later, not saying that there wasn't bad cops, and we've known there's good and bad in every profession. But back then, most of the kids we grew up with, they just didn't like the cops because they represented authority and the law. And if they wanted to, like, stay out late, or they wanted to do this or drink or get high, that was the law that might get them in trouble. So they didn't like the cops because they represented authority. They wouldn't come up to you and say, well, I saw him kill a guy. That would be very rare for us to hear in our age group back in the 80s, to hear, I saw that cop kill somebody. Now, all these years later, we're getting older. You got young kids that are our age back then. You know what I'm trying to say? Absolutely. That they're going to say, I saw a cop kill a man on Memorial Day 2020, and he basically killed that man by, sitting on top of him with both knees. Now, that's not all cops, but just like how the kids that we grew up with that would throw those things, call them names and stuff, they hated all cops because they represented authority. Now you're going to have a group of kids growing up seeing, people like this killed, or hearing about the woman in Kentucky shot, and But I'm saying some of the people in the United States that see things like that, they might be more adept to sit there and say, I don't trust a police officer now. I just saw that. Now, these guys that have been arrested, they've been fired, they're all going to get arrested. And hopefully they all go to jail for a long, long time, for the rest of their lives. Because of what people saw, I've already seen people on Facebook saying, see, you can't trust a cop. And those are adults. So imagine a young mind being told that at home. They're going to never trust a cop.
Well, I'll just finish up with this before we finish the podcast tonight. And that is that we do have good cops. I mean, I know this is very disturbing to see, and it's hard to trust on it with any race. We just don't know, what's going to happen because there's still more bad cops out there. But we've also got to remember that there are good cops out there that put their lives on the line. And I think that's important to say. Not all cops are bad. But we do got to make the stuff that you saw that took place on Memorial Day cannot happen again. I don't know what can be done, but something has to be done. It was very disturbing to see this man beg for his life, and 4 cops, not one of them, the guy that was on top of him, not to release, because he was already secured, it looked like, right? Or the other 3 police officers that were around, or the one on video that you couldn't even intervene. They were just standing there. Imagine your life, you begging for your life, and no one coming to help you. Imagine that. And the guy that was on top of that police officer, you could have released. You didn't have to get up if you felt that you didn't have him secure, but you could have released some pressure to help him. And you made a decision not to do that. It's almost like you're enjoying the life being sucked out of this young man. That's sickening and disgusting. And I hope they go to prison, but this has to be the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. There was nothing by watching it that I could do. I'm watching it from video and wish I could have done something, right? Can you imagine the people that were there? There are also people begging the police officers, he can't breathe. You hear it through that 5 or 7 minute, and they didn't even move. They weren't even humans. It didn't bother them. That's what bothers me. It didn't even bother you that another human being. How can you be this way? How can you not say, well, okay, no matter if you're a police officer, whatever you are, there's someone that is begging for their life. They deserve to be helped, and they didn't do anything to help him, and they didn't allow anybody to come in and help. That's awful. Murders that we talked about, I think there were 4. We want to hear your opinion. You can look up these and get some information if you want. But I like to be able to hear from other people, whether you're on the on one side or the other. But we want
whether you're listless or you're Agape.
Lives matter. Doesn't matter what race you are, what color your skin is. Lives matter, and we need to save lives at any cost. And so I'll just leave you with that until we do our next podcast.
I just want to say that if you've not already joined or liked our Two Old Pirates Facebook page, go ahead and go do that, please. This is podcast 18. We don't mean to be getting into these deep discussions every single time, but we do like to talk about the truth and things that are happening. I promise you, podcast 19, we're going to change a little bit, and we're going to be much more lighthearted on 19. We're going to have some fun. I want to see Gabriel laugh and stuff, and I'll try to embarrass him a couple times if I can. But we love you all. We hope that you're still continuing to follow us. We're growing slowly but surely. We're going to remember, like, share, subscribe, comment, whatever you can do to go ahead and make the Two Old Pirates become bigger, because over this summer there's going to be a lot of big changes, and we're going to go ahead and go worldwide. All right, peace out. Hope you have a good night and a good day tomorrow.
Peace out.